Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Asheville Vedic Astrology YouTube channel. My name is Fernando Raul Castro Alvarez, and I am part of the 4-year Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship course. And today, my teacher, Ryan Kursak, has been kind enough to invite me here yet again to talk to you guys about how the planets function for an Aquarius rising chart. And in this particular video, we will be discussing and focusing on the role of Chandra Deva, or Soma, or the moon, for people who have Aquarius rising in their natal chart. So before we start, let's just explain, what does it mean to have an Aquarius rising? What it means is that whenever you were born, the plane of the observer was intercepting the plane of the ecliptic in a specific degree between 0 Aquarius and 29 degrees, 59 minutes, 59 seconds of Aquarius. And that point, that specific place in the east at the horizon, represents the first cusp. It represents the ascendant, it represents the lagna, it represents the anchor that anchors the whole chart. It represents the starting point from which the astrologer will build the rest of the 12 houses that represent the 12 areas through which the karmas of the signs and the planets will manifest in the life of the Jataka, or in the life of the person whose horoscope the astrologer is analyzing. And as we mentioned before, in this video we will be focusing on what the moon rules for people who have Aquarius rising. And for Aquarius rising, the moon rules the 6th house, which is called Arishtana. And Arishtana means the house of enemies, which is the 6th. And as you might already know, the luminaries, which are obviously the moon and the sun, only rule one sign. Cancer for the moon and Leo for the sun. And since the moon rules Cancer, she only has rulership over one house for each of the 12 ascendants. And for the ascendant of Aquarius, she rules over the 6th, which is Dushtana, which is a particularly, let's say, somewhat difficult house in comparison to others, although the 6th is also an Upachaya house, so it will improve with time. That's why some people say that it is the least of the Dushtanas, because with time they improve. But before we get into the particularities of the house in question, we must first analyze what the moon is. And boy, do we have a problem there, because the moon, although she's the fastest planet, although she's the smallest planet, the moon is of grave importance, both astrologically, astronomically, biologically, scientifically. We must remember that without the moon, you know, our gravitational field would go haywire, and life in the planet as we know it would be impossible. So the moon is a very particular planet that has a lot of things going on. So first of all, you know, the moon is not necessarily a malefic planet nor a benefic planet, since its inherent beneficence or maleficence will depend on the amount of light she gets from the sun, the other luminary. We must remember that the moon gravitates towards a benefic nature when she is in a tithi that corresponds to the Shukla Paksha phase. What it means is that the moon will be a benefic when she's in a phase where she's growing in light, okay, which is kind of contradictory, because the sun is a mild malefic, but that's another topic for another video. And at the same time, the moon will gravitate towards maleficence when she's in a tithi that corresponds to the Krishna Paksha side of the moon, which means that she will gravitate towards maleficence when she is in a phase corresponding to its darkening. So the idea here is that the moon will be a benefic when she is full of light, or getting full with light, and she will correspond to a malefic when she is being void of light, or when she is completely void of light when it's new moon. So in principle, new moons are inherently malefic from the Vedic point of view, and full moons are inherently benefic from the Vedic point of view. Of course, when it comes to the moon, we should see beyond its essential dignity. We also have to see its accidental dignity. We have to see if there's a Kemadruma yoga, if she's alone. The moon likes to be with people. If she's void, of course. It's very important to see where the moon is, in addition to its dignity, to really qualify its maleficent or benefic nature. At the same time, the moon is a female planet. She's one of the 2 female planets in astrology, the other be obviously Venus. So being a female planet, this is a planet that likes to help other planets. This is a planet that likes to be part of something bigger than herself. This is a planet that likes to make others feel, you know, good, feel nurtured. At the same time, female planets depend a lot on moods. These are the type of planets that won't do something if they are not in the mood to do it, which is a little bit different from male planets, which have the ability to do anything whenever it is required, no matter how they feel. At the same time, the moon in the planetary cabinet metaphor in Brihad Parashara Hora Shastra in chapter 3, if I'm not mistaken, the moon is the queen of the planet. She is the official consort, the official woman of the king, which is the sun. And with the king, she rules over the kingdom. And she is a very important planet because the queen is basically the consciousness of the king. She, although she's not a counselor, she has a very special place for the king. So the king will learn and listen from the moon, because if the king is the head, the queen is the neck. So what is more important, the neck or the head? Well, you decide. You decide who's more important in a marriage, the man or the woman. It's a complementary affair. So the moon is that female quality that will nurture the king, that will nurture our spirit, that will nurture our Atma, our natural Atma, to do whatever she feels is right for the betterment of the kingdom. At the same time, the moon is of a Vaishya Varna, or of a merchant class. And this is interesting because a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people think that the moon is a Brahman, but that's not true. The Brahmas are basically Jupiter and Venus. The moon is a Vaishya, just like Mercury. So she will gravitate toward things that can be measured, things that can be, exchanged. She will be oriented towards transformation, towards dealing with the material, towards organizing what's going on in the kingdom in order to, counsel the king on what's the best for the people from an emotional lunar point of view. At the same time, the moon is a Sattvic planet. So the moon simply is. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sattvaguna is associated with the idea of harmony, of goodness. It's associated with things that are holy, things that are pure, things that lift us up towards, a more serene state of being. Of course, Sattvic just means just being, just honestly being however you are. And that's how the moon manifests. At the same time, the moon, in terms of doshas, is both a Vata and a Kapha planet. What this means is that she has two doshas, which correspond to Ayurveda, which is the Vedic science of diet and health. And Vata corresponds to the union of the bhutas, or the elements of ether and wind, which is basically like a gust of wind, Vata. And Kapha corresponds to the union of water and earth, which would correspond to a little bit of mud, right? Vata corresponds to the movement of things, to the transportation of things from point A to point B, and vice versa. And Kapha corresponds to providing structure for things. So here we can see that the moon is able to move around places. She's able to go from place to place. And at the same time, she's able to provide the structure, to provide the support for other things to feel better, to feel safe, to have help. Okay, so basically we see here that the moon is a very nurturing planet, and she is very important because she's also a significator of self. The moon will identify who we are from a psychological, emotional point of view. So if we were going to describe the moon in keywords, she would be described as, soul mind, our individualized consciousness, which sometimes people corresponded to the ego, which is quite interesting because in modern astrology, the sun is associated to ego, but from the Vedic perspective, the moon is more of an ego because she's really the individualized person that has become in this incarnation, okay? At the same time, she represents moods, emotions, and attention. You must remember, wherever the moon is in our chart, that's where our attention will be. Okay, so what is the sixth house? As I mentioned before, the sixth is called Arishtana. The sixth is the house that has to do with enemies, with delays, with obstacles, also with health issues, but it also has to do with our work. Not necessarily our profession or our career, but our day-to-day physical manifestation of what we do in life to survive. And it also represents the idea of the things we do not get in life that we want to get and how we respond to that, which is quite interesting. So in essence, what we see here is that the moon will rule the sixth for an Aquarius lagna. And how will we see this? Well, first of all, we must analyze that having this rulership, the mind will naturally be akin to sixth house issues. Aquarian people are very, I don't want to say philanthropic, but they worry about other people, not necessarily in the idea of, being worried about what other people might do to them, but the idea of serving other people, of being useful to other people. Having the lordship of the sixth for an Aquarius lagna, what this means is that the person will naturally gravitate his or her attention towards sixth house issues of service, of work, of dealing with problems, of dealing with any type of situation that requires help. It's a very typical prediction. Usually when we have the sixth house in a water sign, like we do here, and it is in a good dignity, it might represent that this person might manifest themselves professionally as a health professional, somebody that deals with health. Not necessarily a surgeon or not necessarily a doctor, but maybe some type of homeopathic doctors, maybe some type of counselor, maybe some type of psychology professional. It's the idea that if we have a water sign in the sixth house, there will be a natural emotional inclination towards service, health, toward dealing with those things. And if the 10th house, 10th lord is associated to the sixth house, sixth lord, there might be situations there. But at the same time, we also might see that having this combination of the sixth and the moon, we might see a lot of strong emotions associated with health issues, associated with hard work, associated with obstacles. We have to see the dignity of the moon. If she is in a bad condition, maybe we don't respond in a very positive way from an emotional perspective towards not getting what we want. Here is where we kind of realize how general these videos are, and we must remember that each chart is different, so each chart requires a specific analysis. So that's a very important thing. At the same time, we see that our emotions and moods will be related to dealing with enemies, to dealing with obstacles, to dealing with delays. Once again, we must see the dignity of the moon to see how we're going to deal with this. Because we must remember the sixth is a Dushtana. The sixth is also a cadent house, or how do you call it in Sanskrit? It's basically an apoklima house, correct? So it's basically one of these houses that lacks certain amount of power compared to the succeedent or the Panafara or the Kendra houses. So, here we don't get what we want. So emotions, moods are related to it. Now, if we have a strong moon, then we love dealing with these types of obstacles. We love dealing with these types of things. And this is why, this might manifest in some sort of profession or work related towards caregiving or health in that sense. And at the same time, we must remember that the moon is our individualized consciousness. So in essence, having the moon ruling the sixth, what it means is that our individualized consciousness will be closely associated with sixth house issues of dealing with obstacles, of dealing with enemies, of dealing with health issues, of dealing with delays, of dealing with the things that we don't have. We must remember also that the sixth is a Trishadaya, so there will be a strong emotional connection towards the things that we didn't get in life, or the things that we couldn't get and that we're trying to get yet again. It will depend on the quality of the moon to see how we address these psychological and emotional factors concerning this sixth house. And we must remember that the sixth is seen through Cancer. And Cancer, we must remember that the sixth will be seen through the filter of Cancer that has to do with security, with emotional capacity, and our overall capacity to survive in a sixth house environment. So once again, if you have the sixth in a water sign, it's kind of complicated because the sixth in a water sign, then you have this Tushtana, Trishadaya energy related to a moksha trikona, which can be a little bit difficult in terms of the moksha trikona related to the signs, not necessarily to the houses. But here we must remember that the sixth is an artha trikona house, not necessarily a moksha trikona, but moksha will be there through the presence of Cancer there. So here we can see how we're going to deal with the material, with the physical world, which would be part of the Artha Trikona, which is the 6th, the 10th, and the 2nd, also called the Karma Trikona, the Trikona of action, and how it is imbued with this moksha water capacity of emotions, of feelings, and how it is the 6th. So here we see how emotions, how sentiments, how moods, how our attention, how our mind would be intrinsically related to our capacity to survive and our emotional security towards dealing with enemies, towards dealing with things that require our will to overcome. Now we must remember also that the moon, the lord of the 6th, gets exalted in the 4th house in Taurus and gets debilitated in the 10th in Scorpio. So what this shows is that for an Aquarius Lagna person, it is better to keep our enemies and our problems to ourselves. It is better to deal with these things from an emotional perspective, but from a private perspective, from our private life, from our house, from our home, from our domestic well-being. It's good to keep it there where it is secure in Taurus, where we can manage all these 6th house issues, all these Artha issues, all these issues that have to do with the watery essence of Cancer from a perspective where we have our own space, where we can be calm in dealing with these things. The problems come when we take our problems to the public arena in the 10th. Here we can see that the worst thing that Aquarius Lagna can do, in theory, in practice, and in potential, is to take problems to the workplace. It's to have fights with our boss, to have fights or problems with people who we work with, or worse yet, to be seen as a person who is constantly fighting with other people, who is constantly seen as a troublemaker, or a person who, or worse yet, a person who is always dealing with problems, who has bad luck, or at least not necessarily have bad luck, but projects this idea of having bad luck. And at the same time, if you're a health professional, it's better to be a health professional in a quiet way, not necessarily, showing off, because here we see that the 6th and the 10th might bring some potential problems. Even though you could be a great surgeon, a great caretaker, maybe this can arise some sort of jealousy among other people. This can bring some sort of envy from, let's say, professionals who are higher ups to you. So here we see that dealing with problems, enemies, obstacles, health issues is better to be done from a private point of view. And it is not counsel for people who have Aquarius Lagna to deal with these 6th house issues from a 10th house point of view. So here we can also see the idea that maybe these are people who are drawn towards the fields of healthcare, towards medicine, or towards taking care of other people, because it's a water sign 6th. But probably it's not their real profession, or probably it's not their real career. Or maybe they want it to be their real profession or their real career, and they can't really make it happen, or they have problems doing it, or somehow they did it and they're always dealing with problems. This is the type of lordship that does better in private place. So maybe this is the type of person who likes these things, but maybe does another thing for a career, or maybe does it as a secondary aspect to their career because they're more private about it. So in theory, it's a very interesting combination, as we can see. So this has been my video for how the moon functions for an Aquarius Lagna. If you liked this video, please give it a like. Subscribe to Asheville Vedic Astrology YouTube channel if you haven't. The best Vedic astrology channel on YouTube, according to 9 3/4 of every 10 astrologers you will ever meet. So remember that. And if you have any question, feel free to write it down in the comments. From time to time, I might drop by and maybe try to answer your questions. And I hope you like this video, and see you in the next. So I wish you all strength, serenity, and wisdom. Take care, and stop recording now.